After Party on the Power Trip Podcast Network.
You do?
I hate
You don't
croutons.
like croutons?
I don't like croutons, man.
Croutons, fuck.
No,
dude.
they're hard, and they're hard.
Okay.
I don't like them on my teeth. Do not like them on my teeth.
Oh, okay.
Hey, everybody. It is
we're going.
8:59. It's the second day of July of
Hi,
2020,
Corey.
and here we are. It's
Hi,
Thursday
Hans.
morning.
Hi,
Hi.
Zach.
Been a quick week. Wouldn't you guys agree?
Yeah, this
been
week
fun.
has gone fast.
It's
I think
gone
that the COVID time warp has officially changed, where March and April took 15 years to complete, and the last month and a half has like flown by. Right? It's got to be weather related, right? Like when we were stuck inside, it was still cold.
Yeah.
It felt like the days were lasting forever. Now I feel like the days are just flying by, and the summer's almost over.
Good.
It could be also that it seems like, even though there's not, and this is silly, but it could be also that it seems like there's an end in sight, and in the middle of it all, you didn't know if it was ever going to end. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think, 4 months ago, we couldn't do anything. Now
Right.
you can do things.
Yeah. I'm going to pee my pants if I don't go to the bathroom.
No, right
I
on.
thot I could hold it, but I don't think I can.
Well, why don't you call us? You can do it from the pot.
That sounds great.
I'll
be right
check in.
Let's not do that again.
Yeah, and Ben should be here in a second anyway.
I'm excited for you to explain this thing that you were talking about on the show or off the air.
It's such a good example of how lazy people are, because all it would have taken at any point in the last 10 years was a 5-minute YouTube search. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I really wanted to gain knowledge, I could have just worked for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I can't wait to hear this. Are we going to wait for Hogs?
Sure, that's fine.
Hey,
Ben.
is Pound My Fritter good for the podcast title?
Sure, yeah.
Ben, fireworks shopping, your thoughts?
It's the best.
Can you talk into the microphone?
Oh, we're on.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
rolling.
yeah. Chris
Oh,
has
you
had to
guys are
go
rolling.
piss.
Oh, Chris isn't here. Okay, gotcha. Fireworks shopping, the best. Super fun. I love it. I love watching my kids roam around. It's a little overwhelming, I will say that, because we do it like once a year, so I'm not exactly sure. And we don't go to the same place every time in Wisconsin. But to give my kids, each one of my kids. So the deal was great. You buy everything in the store was buy one get one for 99 cents. So I was like, all right, well, 3 of my kids, like, they love those those cakes, It's like 500
Those
grams,
whale.
those cakes, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, all right, from this section, this color code, like all the way down, like you get to pick one. I mean, it's so fascinating. Like, so my 6-year-old classic, what a 6-year-old like meathead caveman little kid would do, right? He finds the one box that like looks the coolest, right? It could be like this army guy or like this big badass looking like rhinoceros with like an army hat on, and be like, I want this one, and he picks in like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And I go, well, it's just. I go, maybe look around a little bit. Maybe that's not the one.
Isn't that crazy? Every kid does that.
I still do
Just
that.
take your time and look at your options.
Right.
It's the first one they see that they like every time. I want this one. Well, let's look around
Damn
a
it,
little
I
bit.
still do
Then
that.
Whit, being 9 years old, he put a little more thought into it, but he was only focused on the number of shots per box. So he was like, wait, but this one has 16 shots per box, and this one has 32. I want to get the one at 32.
Starting to analyze
Yeah,
it.
and
See,
then he would walk around and be like, but that one has 38. He's like, man, I want this one. Like, regardless.
Since this is a Goldilocks theory or story, can I guess what Ames did then?
Yeah.
You couldn't get her to make a decision.
Could not get her to make a decision.
100% predictable. Drives me nuts. Pick one.
And watched the videos. Because they have video screens to show you what.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they have video screens. They're like, okay, this is what Colonel Sanders will do, and then and it goes up, right? And then she'd be like, okay, wait, I'm going to watch the next one. And so she was standing in front of like the I don't know 5 to 8 boxes, and she was watching the videos and analyzing which ones, and which colors she wanted, and it was like, just pick one. Like, it is fine, but. Dude, my kids, I was on AJ and that whole Fan Dads thing yesterday, the podcast.
That's still a thing?
Yeah. And they were just asking about my kids. Where I go, my kids are like out of a textbook. They really are. Like, everything that you read before you have your first kid, if you do any reading or whatever, not everybody does, and we didn't do a ton of it either. But they were saying that, all right, firstborns expect this, secondborns expect this, third, fourth, whatever. If you have that, dude, my firstborn, 100% rule follower, doesn't take a lot of chances, blah blah blah, but like very responsible from an early age. Number 2, super emotional, can be high, can be low. Damn near bipolar, this kid, right? Number 3 is a walking, talking caveman. Don't know if he's ever going to read. I mean, his best shot to get into college is an athletic scholarship because it sure as hell ain't going to be academics. But he's the one that just like he definitely is much more mature than his age. You know, we have friends coming in town that are 13-year-old. They have 13-year-old boys. They're coming in town today, and he was asking my wife, my 6-year-old boy, he's like, "Can I teach them the F word? Do you think they know it?" And she's like,
"This kid's great."
Can I teach him the
and she's
F
like,
word?
"Well, I don't teach him that word because she plays." She's like, I don't think they know that word." And he's like, "They don't?" He's like, I don't think they do, and I don't want you to be responsible for teaching that word. He's like, "But I know how to use it," and blah, blah, blah. And
That kid's
What
trouble.
word was he talking about? No, for real. Was he saying fart or was he saying fuck?
fuck.
No kidding?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Well, and she goes, I mean, where do you hear that? Is this stuff on YouTube? He's like, well, you guys say it all the time.
Oh,
Like,
Yeah,
boy.
right. Well, there's no debate.
I'm like, well,
in that.
true.
Yeah, of course.
I mean,
Yeah,
and we knew that because I've shared the story with my firstborn. When she was like 3, we were in the Bahamas and it was raining. She walked outside and she's like, "Oh, it's fucking raining outside." And we're like, that's brilliant.
That's still my
Alex's
favorite
Jesus
story.
Christ
you
story.
you
right?
used it perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Well
done.
said.
Yeah. So anyway, like my kids are right out of a textbook, and it's just comical. But anyway,
Man, that's so cool.
it was to answer your question.
The fire. Teach them the F word.
Yeah, the fireworks
That's brilliant.
shopping was so fascinating to see their personalities, and I've always known that about our firstborn. She cannot make a decision for anything. Like my wife hates shopping with her. Hey, let's go to the store and get you a new tank top. It'll take her an hour and a half. I'm not sure. I like this one, but I also can like this one. Man, she's just
Make a call.
make a call, man.
Make a
That's the
decision.
one thing that we tell her all the time. Like, you have to make decisions. And if you ask her an opinion, well, I kind of like your opinion. I kind of like, no, be opinionated. It's fine. Find something that you like and just go with it. But it's hard for her personality.
All right, you guys want to talk math?
Yeah, I want to
hear
get
it.
my mind blown.
So, remember, Hawk, we were talking about the Monty Hall problem? This is why I love our listeners, by the way.
Yeah.
The Let's Make a Deal thing from the movie 21.
Absolutely, yes.
I've wondered about that scene for like a decade, but this is just more proof how fucking lazy people are. And I mean me, right? Because I now mostly understand it, and it took me a 4.5-minute YouTube video that a bunch of listeners that heard this podcast sent me. And after the 4 or 5-minute video, I'm going, that was so easily digested if I just would have taken the effort in the last 10 minutes to go, instead of or last 10 years, instead of saying, I don't understand that. I wonder how that works. How about just seek out the knowledge, right? So lazy.
Right.
But I just never did. But obviously, a bunch of people sent us the link, and I watched it, and now it's so unbelievably obvious. I can't believe it tripped me out for a decade.
I can't wait to hear this because
All right, so
you
it
told
works
me
like
this
this.
earlier, and I'm like,
So
how's
here's
this
the
all
Monty
this?
Hall problem. At the end of Let's Make a Deal, there's 3 doors, and you get to pick a door. Sauce, let's just say you pick door number 1. And behind one of the 3 doors is a car. The other 2 doors is like a losing prize, like whether it's a goat or just very minor prizes, right? All right, you win a microwave or something, but you don't get the car. The whole point is to try to win the grand prize, right? So 1 winning prize, 2 losing doors. So how it would work is you pick door number 1. Then the host, Monty Hall, would eliminate one of the other 2 doors that did not have the grand prize, right? Almost like, let's show you what you could have had if you would have picked door number 2, and then door number 2 is just bullshit, right?
Yeah.
So now there's 2 doors left. The prize is in one, nothing is in the other, essentially, right? So what are the chances you have the winner?
50.
It seems like it should be 50-50, right? There's a winning door and there's a losing door. So in the movie 21, Kevin Spacey, but he asks the class, by the way, I missed the main part. So Monty Hall would always say, would you want to switch? Do you want to keep door number 1 or you want to switch to door number 3? He would just give people the option to switch. And Kevin Spacey asks the class, should you switch? And most people in the class are like, well, it doesn't matter. It's 50-50. But then the one kid says, you should always switch. And Kevin asks him why, and he explains it quickly, but because it's mostly a garbage movie, I didn't understand what he said, and I have never really gone back to like break down and really listen to what he said. So it never made sense to me why you should always switch. So here's the gist of it, and the easiest way to explain it, and I think this is fascinating, is let's say you pick door number 1, right?
Yeah.
What are the chances before anything happens that you have made the right selection?
1 out of 3.
1 out of 3. So 33%, right?
Yep.
What are the chances that you're wrong?
2 out of 3. 67%.
66%, right. 66.7 repeating. So what the theory is, it's the principle of like condensed odds or condensed probability. It's if you stick with door number 1, there's a 66% chance that the right answer is in one of the other 2 doors. So if you don't switch and Monty Hall eliminates door 2, that all of that probability transfers into door 3. So now door 3 has a 66.6% chance of being the winner. You still have a 1 out of 3% chance. The better way to like feel that, if that still feels wrong, is the video that I watched that was sent to me, which makes a ton of sense, is let's do the exact same problem with 100 doors, right? Pick a door between 1 and 100. Go.
40.
All right, so you pick door 40. What are the chances that you were right?
1 out of 100.
You have a 1% chance of being right, right? Now, let's do the Monty Hall thing. Let's say I eliminate 98 other doors, right? And I leave door 40, but I get rid of every door but door 4. Do you want to stay with door 40 or do you want to switch?
I'm going to switch.
Of course, you're like, well, duh. The chances that you got it right are still 1%. What he does then is condense 99% probability into door 4. So it's like, it's obvious you would switch to the other one. Well, yeah, 99 times out of 100, that other door is the right answer, and I guessed wrong. So you would switch in a heartbeat.
Are you going to explain the human condition and why?
Because this is the thing that I think is fascinating, Chris. This is the part that you might care about.
Yeah, please.
Because the math part maybe doesn't do much for you. But I think the math part is fascinating.
But fascinating.
Super fucking
but you're right. To close that point, super fascinating.
Yeah.
And you're right. Super obvious.
Super obvious.
And
Once you hear it, you're like, duh, you should always switch.
Yeah, you should.
Always. So 66% chance if you switch that you have the grand prize in the Monty Hall problem in Let's Make a Deal.
Wow. Yeah.
But what they found, the study is, and Hawk, you weren't here for this, guess how often when people were given that choice to switch, not understanding the math, right? These are just random rubes playing a game show. Guess how often they switched?
I would say almost never.
13% of the time.
Okay, right.
So this is psychological. This is not mathematical, right? There's like something called the Endowment Principle, I think was the second word. I forget what the second word was. But it basically is that the human brain is conditioned to try to own things that they don't necessarily own. So when you make the choice and you pick door 1, right, you just made that choice. That's not your door. You don't own at all yet what's behind it. But if then Monty Hall gets rid of door number 2 and asks you to switch, that we are conditioned in our brains to say, well, but door number 3 is not my door. I picked door number 1. Right. So the fear of having the car behind your door, not just any door, right, your door, and switching and losing it outweighs the logic of knowing that neither one of the doors is yours.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So it should be the fear of switching and losing should be the same as the fear of staying and losing. Yeah. But it isn't. So 87% of people stayed with whatever door they picked. They didn't. They refused to switch. When in essence, of course, they would have given themselves a 33% better chance of winning if they had just switched. Isn't that fascinating?
That's incredible. Man.
It's the endowment effect. Got it.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Zach.
That's fascinating, Corey. The 100 door thing.
It makes it super obvious.
Of course.
Because everybody would switch. It's blatantly obvious you would switch with 100 doors. So if you whittle it down to 3, you can start to see how you have to switch.
Yeah.
It makes tons of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are big on going with their gut.
Yeah, correct. Yeah,
Right.
That's what I was saying earlier.
Yeah.
When
That's
when you're
and that's that. It's as a gambler, a lot of people are like, if you gamble, go with your gut.
And that's in the long term, that's always wrong.
Yeah.
Again, I had a buddy that was a serious blackjack player when we were in college. He almost damn near basically gambled himself out of college.
Proceed.
But that's the thing with blackjack, right? Is once you know the table, once you know the odds, in the long run, you just have to stick with the odds because that gives you your best chance long term. But in a one session, if you're playing for an hour, then can you go with your gut? Of course. And you can win a ton. In the long run, that's going to destroy you, right? I just got to go with my gut on this one. That's the worst when you're sitting there and the dealer's got like a 5 and the guy that's sitting on third base of a blackjack table is like, well, I know I'm supposed to stay,
Fuck you,
but I'm
stay.
going with my gut. I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah,
what are you
stay.
Which is why I hate
Stay,
blackjack.
fuckface.
Yeah, you don't go with your gut in blackjack. You don't. You go with the odds, but you're definitely allowed to do what you want. It's your money, but I hate when it affects other people at the table. When you have a gut guy, that used to be my number one reason to get up and leave and change tables. I wouldn't throw like a fit and be like, what the fuck are you doing? But in my head, I'd be like, well, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. I'm switching tables. Right. I'm not playing with a guy that goes with his gut with a 5 on the board. Just,
I wonder if
what are you doing?
I wonder if there's ever been a sociological experiment where they took the personality traits of people who gamble. I wouldn't necessarily say professional gamblers, but just the general population. Let's just say people that go to Vegas. They're going for a good time. Maybe you're not an expert in gambling. You're not an expert in, counting cards. Are you an emotional person? Like on the spectrum of personalities, if you're more emotional, I have to think that your odds of being successful in gambling are way lower.
I would agree.
Because the way you're explaining this, the worst thing that Vegas or any casino would ever want is a bunch of cyborgs to walk in with that are emotionless, that can only think logically and about probability. They would clean house, but they know the human condition is, well, especially when people drink, I'm just going to go with my gut.
Yeah, you chase
intuition. A novice intuition is the best thing for casinos and the worst thing as a person if you want to gamble. I would think.
I have a couple of huge poker cliches, but there's nothing worse than sitting at the table and you'll hear somebody be like, I knew a heart was coming on the river. I felt it. You didn't fucking feel it. It's impossible to feel the next card. But
you get a 1 in 4 chance at that, like in your mind.
Exactly, right. But so there's another term in poker called tilting, and it's exactly what you're talking about. It's taking emotion out of poker, right? It's like if you go on tilt, that means you took a really bad beat or a hand went the wrong way, and now you're just going to lose discipline. You're going to be like, well, now I don't even care. I'm just going for it. I'm going to play hands I shouldn't play. I'm going to make bets I shouldn't make. And the best players in the world essentially don't tilt. You could lose a huge pot by getting unbelievably unlucky, and you have to rationally know that last hand has nothing to do with the next hand. I have to make the optimal game theory decision on the next hand and forget that the previous hand ever took place. But that's where that's a skill to learn how to get rid of that emotion and say, I have to, and I know you probably did it with football, right? You have to move on to the next play and forget that the last hand took place.
Well, not only that, but what makes probably what you're saying a good poker player, a world-class poker player, is not only not going on tilt, but also in the time it takes to lose that hand, process that emotion, and the next round of cards are going around, you have to learn why you fucked that up. You have to be able to process instantly.
Yep.
Okay,
if it was your fault, right?
Bury my emotion of like, I'm pissed,
yeah,
but what happened?
But that's the thing is a lot of people tilt based on luck, not even on poor play, right? If I have aces and you have pocket tens and we go all in and you spike a 10 and I lose 80% of my stack, I did everything right. I just got unlucky. That's still, people still tilt on bad luck, right? It's even worse when you make a mistake.
But you'd only deduce that information after you were smart enough to process, okay, I did everything right.
And still lost.
I got bad luck.
Right.
Now I can say, okay, bad luck happens all the time. I got a bad beat. Now I can move on. But you still have to be able to process and be smart enough to know, like, what the fuck just happened there?
But doesn't the same thing happen in football, right? Where
all the time.
You know instantly whether that was a really bad bounce of the ball, you got a really bad flag, something went wrong that was out of your control. I assume, much like a bad beat in poker, when you know you did everything right and it still didn't go your way, those are much easier to get over, right? Because you're like, well, I didn't fuck it up. It's not my fault.
Right.
I can move on quicker. It's really bad when you cost yourself a ton of chips and you're like, all right, that was all on me, but if I don't shake this off, I'm going to be out of this tournament in 10 minutes. Like, that's a seasoned trait that you have to learn over time, because it's hard not to get emotional when you're dumping a bunch of money or a bunch of chips when it's your fault.
Which is why I think with everything, and this goes back to the Malcolm Gladwell thing with the 10,000 hours, that like you can get lucky and you can have success early on, but let's just take poker because we're talking about it. We're not just talking about just the cards and how they play, the rules of probability. You could become a master of that in a vacuum, right? If someone teaches you just the numbers and the probability and chip betting, now you throw in the human element of watching other people's body language. And this is where it's got to be like, so you take a bad beat, you got to process that, figure out what happened there, but also you got to figure out who you're playing and how these people, like, okay, what's been his personality this last hour that I've been sitting here with him? Like, you're taking in, there's what, 8 guys at a table usually?
9 usually, yeah.
9 people. That's a lot of variables that you've got to process in seconds. Like, okay, last time I played heads up against you, Corey, might have been 30 minutes ago. But as a great poker player, I should remember how you reacted and your body language, whether or not you had a hand or you're bluffing.
And I know I brought this up a couple years ago when that Sean McVay story first came out about his recall of past plays. Yeah. You guys have been bored with my poker stories for 15 years, but it's true. Like, when I leave a poker tournament and I've been playing 10 hours, if I call my dad on the way home, I can walk through almost every hand. I know what came on the flop, what came on the turn, what was bet on the turn. Like, I can go through 10 hours of cards, and I'm not in any way a freak like Sean McVay. I think almost all serious poker players can do it. Like, almost all of them. Because that means you're paying it. If you're not paying attention, then you're probably not very good. But if you're paying attention, you could be like, I had this, I bet this, I got 3 bet from this position, and then such and such came on the floor. You can go through the whole hand. It's not that hard. What's crazy, to your point, though, is when you watch poker on TV and you see somebody make a play that's super abnormal, like, holy cow, you have no idea what that player's history is with the player that he's making that move against, right? Especially in those big tournaments that are 4, 5, 6 days long. He may have 30 hours of experience against the guy that he's just playing with, so he has a reason that we can't see in a 1-hour TV program where it's like, why would you ever do that against that guy? Well, maybe it's been a 3-day setup waiting for a chance to strike, and it maybe didn't work, but there was a reason that he's not doing it after 30 hours of just going, well, fuck it, I'm going to wing it. No, it's like he's making a conscious decision to try something because he thinks he has an edge, even if it doesn't work. And that's the game that I love.
This is where, I'm not a huge fan of LeBron James, but as a player, and now we don't play the same sport, when I walked away from a game, I almost had to watch the game the next day when we got graded to really remember, like, to try to recall, like, okay, that's what happened to play. Like, I got more clarity after I watched it a second time, especially from a bird's eye view. And we went through the calls and stuff, then things would sink in and my recall would be like, oh, yeah, I remember that fucking play, whatever. To watch LeBron James talk about in a press conference, whatever the clip that went out last year or whatever, and he knew play by play, I turned the ball over, it was 13-14 on the clock and blah, blah, blah. Like, to be that in the moment and in the zone, like, really sets him apart to make him the
focus,
elite
right?
player. Yeah,
that's
the elite player.
Focus.
Like, I felt like I was like performing at a high enough level to make it, but then you look at these guys that can be on the field and feel and be present with everything, game situation, what the down and distance was, what the offense is trying to do, philosophy, not only, and then knowing what you're doing, what your body's doing, and then, like, he was talking about, like, oh, I dribbled down and I saw this setup and I saw this guy was leaning this way, so I want to set him up. Like, to recall that right after the game, like, dude, his mind works at a way different. Like, I mean, you're talking.
It's poker, man.
Yeah, you're talking less than 1% of the population can do that. Probably in any job that they do. Yeah. In any job. Like, can you recall everything that you did from a radio show perspective? Like, think about that. If someone did a press conference right now and asked all three of you guys sitting at a table.
We talk about this all the time. Whenever we're doing the podcast, when we fill out the podcast, like we always look at each other and we go, what the fuck did we talk about?
Exactly.
Just talk about.
Which is not good when I say I can remember every detail of a 10-hour poker session, but my job just happened for 3.5 hours. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah,
what the fuck? Yeah. We talk,
exactly.
What did we bring up with Ben?
Hawk said cock.
Like, but to Chris's point, much like forgetting the last hand and you got to move on to the next hand, Chris, you always say, right, once the segment is over, unless it's a legendarily good segment,
sure,
your mind's always like, what's next segment? What's next? You got to keep moving, which is kind of like the show not being on tilt, right? It's like, even if that was a fucking worthless segment, but the next one, we got to find a way to be good. You got to move on.
Yeah.
So by the time 9:01 hits, it's, God, what did we talk about today? What did we do today?
Not to suck you guys off, but the great thing about this show.
Why are all four of us in a line?
Yeah, why are Hockey's pants down?
Yeah.
Is you guys can run into a segment where it gets kind of heavy or whatever. And then let's just say it's hockey because you're brilliant at the board. He could throw out one button bar. What happened? And all of a sudden, like the ice is broken.
Yeah.
Like the tension or the heaviness gone with one push of a button.
Yep,
that helps. And you move on. Like this radio show versus when I travel around and I listen to other sports stations. And I know this is not really a sports station morning show.
Sure,
but there's the button bar and all the others, they're so rigid. Like, it's just like, man, it's so rigid. And it's so just like what you learn in a textbook in school. But this show's not like that. Like, you guys can break it up because you guys are allowed to have that freedom to, like, play a button, make fun of somebody.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, now you just move on.
Hey, so Hawk, that link I sent you a week or two ago from 538, that gal that was writing about poker, and then made a bunch of metaphors to life or whatever. She was on, I don't know if it was like CBS Saturday Morning or one of those shows, but I saw the clip, but I actually was watching it. I just got lucky and saw it on TV as well. Super fascinating gal. To your point about emotion, Ben, she was a non-poker player, and she thought it'd be interesting to study just the world of like high-stakes, high-level poker for a year or two. So she does like a real deep dive for 3 or 4 weeks, reading everything she can, and she got Eric Seidel, who's one of the more accomplished players in poker history, to kind of coach her. And she said after 3 or 4 weeks, she's like, I think I got a pretty good grasp on this game, which anybody that's ever played poker can tell you. You just can't. It's experience is the mother of right.
Sure. Yeah.
So you can't absorb it all in 3 or 4 weeks. And she basically says she gets out there and she starts getting her ass kicked a little bit, but she starts getting her feet set and starts learning where she was making mistakes. And she said one of the big hurdles she had to get over was when she would lose a big pot, it really threw her off. And that was like Eric Seidel's number one thing to her, is like, you have to eliminate emotion from poker. You have to move on. You can't change what's in the past. Probability doesn't have a memory. Like, move on. And then the way that she described poker after playing it for 2 years, because she won like an $80,000 tournament in the Bahamas. Like, she's had success. Like, she figured it out fast with good coaching and a lot of hard work. Her metaphors were super interesting. Like, she says poker is essentially the perfect metaphor for life because you know your cards, right? So you have information, and then basically you have limited information about what everybody else has, and then you have shared cards in the middle, and even though you have your gut, you have math, you have to constantly analyze risk, reward, all these different things, but hard work doesn't guarantee you success. Intelligence doesn't guarantee you success. Like, at the end of the day, you still have to have, like, it's still, luck still factors in. And I just thought that was a super interesting way to look at it, that, you know, Steve Jobs can work his ass off and then get cancer and die, right? Like, there's so much randomness of this stuff that nothing is guaranteed. You just get to analyze on a daily basis. We all make choices based on quick twitch, risk versus reward analyzation, whether you're consciously doing it or subconsciously doing it. All of us are going to do it today without even thinking about it, right? Yeah. Am I going to wear my seatbelt? Sure. Am I going to wear a mask at Target? Right. It's just risk versus reward. And it's just, poker's the fucking best. I should be playing in a goddamn tournament tomorrow
Vegas.
fucking Las Vegas,
Yeah.
but I'm sitting here instead.
Yeah, I like that you're here.
That's what you get.
Yeah. that's
Well,
what
you know
get.
what? I can get you a deck of cards, and I can get you some pretzels, and you can
Yeah,
maybe
it's the
make
same thing.
And it's going to be hot as fuck outside the next 3 days.
yeah.
So
Why
How
don't
about you just give me your money and I'll kick you in the balls? We'll call it a
That's
day.
the
just
thing is,
throw
I-
your money in a trash can.
If I really want to experience what I would have experienced in Vegas, because this was going to be a solo trip, because it was going to be all business, because it was the main, I'm focusing. If I really want to do it, I should take $10,000, burn it,
Yeah.
and then eat steak fries and watch Shark Week.
That's,
Right.
perfect. Done.
Otherwise, this is hotter than Las Vegas, right? It's hotter than balls out
Yeah, it's
there.
hot out there. Yeah.
yeah, it's hotter than tits outside.
Yeah, it's hotter than tits
I don't know
out
if it's
there,
hotter
man.
than tits, but yeah, it's hot.
Yeah, it's going to be 105 today in Las Vegas.
Dear God. But again, I wouldn't be outside, so I wouldn't care.
Yeah, it's because the hellfire would catch you.
Last question for you. Did Jermaine Wiggins play in the NBA?
Hockey thinks this is Jermaine Wiggins. A couple of times
You have an NBA Jam shirt
Yeah,
on with Karl
who's
Anthony
this?
Towns and Jermaine Wiggins. That's Karl Anthony Towns.
Who's that?
It's Jermaine Wiggins.
Yeah.
He looked at me and goes, "Why do you have Jermaine Wiggins
And why
on
won't you
your
answer me?
t-shirt?"
Why do you have
it's
that?
Andrew Wiggins. Do you know who Andrew Wiggins is?
Dude, you welcomed him to the Twin Cities with a 30-second video.
Of course I know who it is. He's a Timberwolf, apparently.
Not anymore.
You don't know who Andrew Wiggins is?
No.
He doesn't care.
Whoa,
Bless you.
Ben shit his
He-
pants.
we've all forgotten the last 3.5 hours of the morning show. He doesn't remember who Andrew Wiggins
That
is.
doesn't look anything like Jermaine Wiggins.
He doesn't care.
It's a cartoon
It says
character.
Wiggins. He doesn't care.
Yeah. All right.
Doesn't really look like Andrew
Was
Wiggins
that Chief
either.
Wiggins?
Great bit.
Great bit. All right. Ben.
Yeah.
Delightful week of radio. Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
Thank you guys. Enjoy the greatest holiday of the year.
Yeah, man. Enjoy that. And peace out.
And always switch doors.
Always switch
Always
doors.
switch doors.
And you know what? Always wash your back door.
Yep.
Am I right? Am I right? You never know. You just never know what's going to happen back there.
Only 13% of people do.